us. I just can't believe it's been a whole year since I can see a few faces, including hi Chris, various people who are on the front line with me at 6:30 in the morning or whatever it was on Monday the 11th of November 2019. You've been here a long time. And most of us have never done anything remotely like this, and I was so apprehensive that when we saw the treescape people driving up the road, I burst into tears. But anyway, they turned around and went away, and it was fine. But look, this has been an absolutely life-changing event, and I know I'm not alone in saying that. It's been an incredible year. This whole tree situation on the Maunga here is incredibly complicated and nuanced. And so I wanted to share with you, and I'm sorry this will go on for a little bit, I've trimmed it back as much as I can, but I was thinking what out of all, there's been so much happen up here over the last year and such a lot of emotion. I think I've cried more in the last year than I have in my entire life. It's just been such a journey. But I just wanted to share with you 4 things I've learned over the past year. 4 questions I've been left with, because I certainly have more questions than answers. And I've just finished with some thank yous and where to from here. So, of the 4 things I've learned is it appears that not only here in Auckland but in New Zealand as well, that ecology is being idealised into this ridiculous binary of native is good and exotic is bad. And it doesn't work like that in nature. All you have to do is to walk around this beautiful Maunga and look at the native and introduced birds in all of the trees. If you look at the self-seeded plants growing happily under native and exotic trees, 98% of them are natives. So the exotic trees here are serving the purpose of nurturing these beautiful young native seedlings, which in time will take over it. I've also learnt that unfortunately the Te Puna Maunga Authority will stop at nothing to distract attention away from the questions that need to be asked around this issue. And to this day, they've never agreed to a public meeting where people, anyone, can find out what it is that they want to know or need to know. This is extended to making numerous extremely inflammatory public statements about Honour the Maunga, statements that the authority knows full well are untrue, yet it continues to make them. And I find it really, really ironic and sad that the actions of a co-governance or organisation that was formed to give positive expression to a treaty partnership has created such division and discord, and nobody benefits from that. I've also learned in the past year that democracy may not be dead, but it's dying. And with the exception of Councillor Christine Fletcher, who's been a lone voice of support in the council, and oh my God, you've had a hard time of it, Chris, and I'd really like to acknowledge that. But with the exception of her, nobody in Auckland Council will engage with us or even wants to know. So one of our other local councillors, Kathy Casey, is actually on the authority. Now, I don't know if many of you are aware, just very, very briefly, the Collective Redress Act in 2014 vested ownership of 14 maunga in a collective of iwi and hapu. The land is held in trust for the benefit of all. The Reserves Act sits over the top, so these are public reserves. And the Te Puna Maunga Authority was set up as a co-governance organisation, so half its voting members are iwi representatives and half are Auckland Council representatives. So you would think that our local councillor, who happens to be on the authority, she's there to represent the people of Auckland, all of them, would want to talk to us, will not engage, refuse. She's walked past us, walked past me, won't speak. The Mayor won't meet with us. I and numerous others have made requests to address the governing body of Auckland Council on this matter, been declined every time. Our local MP, Jacinda Ardern, refuses to meet with our people. Don't expect her to agree or support, but would like to talk. The only MP of anywhere who's met with us is Melissa Lee, who's the national MP here. So I do question, like, this is clearly an issue in the communities. The Te Puna Maunga Authority is a ratepayer funded organisation receiving millions of dollars of ratepayer money. The communities actually have a right to engage on this and to have questions answered. And I've also learned, sorry if this is all sounding negative, you're probably going to go and feel really depressed after all this. But the good news is the trees and birds are still here. But the other thing I've discovered is there's a lot of fear and self-censorship around this issue and associated issues, and actually I've been quite shocked. There's fear and so we've had numerous people, we get visited by people from all over the country, from all walks of life. Māori, mana whenua and otherwise, non-Māori, people of all races, arborists, experts in the ecology field. We meet with Auckland Council employees, and even some people from who are associated with the Te Puna Maunga Authority have expressed their support for us and agreement with what it is that we're trying to protect and why we're trying to protect it. But inevitably when we say to some of these people, will you speak out and support, the answer is no, I can't. And I find that deeply disturbing. And everyone's got, different reasons. Arborists, for example, many of them rely on the council for work. Others, no, I've had academics say to me that they can't speak out in support of us, to their university colleagues because they'll get pilloried. And so that self-censorship and fear I find concerning. So that's all left me with 4 big questions. Obviously I've learned a lot in the past year, I think we all have. But as many answers as I've found I've gained along the way, I've also gained as many questions, if not more. So the questions that I would love answers to someday are, what is this actually really all about? Because from day one, the authority has spouted all these reasons why they want to destroy 345 healthy, mature, exotic trees off beautiful Owaraka, and around 2,500 as far as I can figure off other maunga. So they say, oh, we're doing it because the trees are pests. So we check the pest register. 7 of the 345 trees are on that pest register. But they're including, they say, but over 100 are, but they're including ones that are under surveillance, which means nothing. It's like saying I won an Olympic medal because I tried out for the team. 7 individual trees are pests. So that's no excuse. They can take those 7, or Wendy might disagree, but there's no excuse to fell 345. So then they moved on to, there's health and safety issues. Well, there's no evidence of any health and safety report. These trees here are no more dangerous than trees anywhere. So then they say, well, it's best practice succession planting, because our view, as you well know, is we support succession to fully native vegetation over time, but best practice is for that to take decades. It takes decades for a guy like this beautiful tōtara to grow to full maturity. So it's not something you do in weeks. There's brochures on the council's website that agree with what we're saying, but the authority claims that they've got experts that say it's best practice succession. But actually, when you unpick why the experts, and I'll talk about the Tree Felling Council and Forest and Bird later, but they're not supporting the authority for ecological reasons. They also talk about the need for the tihi or the tops of the maunga to be able to see each other, but in the case of Owaraka, it's mostly covered in purakawa. And I can assure you, if they bring out the chainsaws for the purakawa, we'll be there too. But again, the argument doesn't stack up when you actually look at the facts behind it. Some of the TMA supporters, in fact an increasing number, are stating publicly that their support relates to decolonisation. But what is I don't understand what the hell is decolonisation, and how does spending tens of millions of dollars on destroying thousands of healthy, mature, exotic trees during a climate emergency actually fix anything? And if it is decolonisation, then why doesn't the authority just come right out with it and say so? And if it is about decolonisation, why doesn't the authority define exactly what that means for the people of Auckland, for all the people of Auckland? And if it isn't that, then then what is it? I'd really like to know. My other big question in all of this, because there's been screeds of media articles and social media posts and speeches and who knows what. But my big question in all of this, because none of these speeches and things seem to be covering this one, is who's on Papatūānuku's side? As our name would suggest, Honour the Maunga has a deep and abiding love for the Maunga itself. Harold spoke beautifully about that spiritual connection. And all of us are here because we've got a spiritual connection with the Maunga in our own special ways. And that's why we're here, yet Forest and Bird and the Tree Council won't stand with us on protecting Papatūānuku, Mother Nature and the environment. And nor will the Tree Council, and nor will the Green Party. And they have their reasons, but they're not ecological ones. So if we don't stand up for Papatūānuku or Mother Nature, then who's going to? I also have a question around, is it racist to question a publicly funded co-governance organisation? Honour the Maunga is an environmental group, and we've unwittingly walked into an intersection of issues that drive deep to the core of who we are as a New Zealand society. And when I realised that, it was like, uh-oh. But in standing up for the environment, we're constantly being branded as racist by the authority in certain news media. But are we racist? There's no place for racism in New Zealand. And criticising a people, no matter who they are, is never okay. There's also no question of the need to embrace the cultural redress intended by treaty settlements. That's never in doubt. However, we as a society need to have the courage to learn how to walk that difficult and sometimes uncomfortable line between racism and unquestioning acceptance of inappropriate behaviours and practices. And as we've discovered, and I certainly have, it's challenging and it's a challenging and sometimes very painful place to be. And it really requires a lot of self-examination and questioning. And that's fine, that's part of the process. But you know, the alternative, the silencing of perfectly valid questions that we've been asking here about the environment, about the lack of community consultation, about the way ratepayers' money is being spent. Ask yourself this. Consider what happens in societies that are controlled by self-censorship and fear, and where a blind eye is increasingly turned. And I'd ask yourself, is that really what we want for New Zealand? My final question is how the authority has behaved to its local communities. Because it is here, remember, it's primarily there to administer treaty settlement lands. Don't get me wrong in that, and that should always be the priority. But it is there, the Maunga were vested in trust for the benefit of everybody, and that was done because, in developing the settlement, it was recognised that all Aucklanders, hold the Maunga dear in their own ways. And what I find, really sad in this, and is this best practice of how, this is another question, sorry, my last question, is this what best practice publicly funded co-governance should look like? Because I find it really sad that the authority could have achieved its native revegetation goals in a way that actually brought all communities with them, rather than creating such division and rancour. Everyone I've spoken with, and I've spoken with people who have a whole gamut of views on this, but everyone I've spoken with supports succession to native vegetation over time. It's just the process that's the point of difference. So wouldn't it have been truly transformative if the revegetation process had been done in a sensitive and constructive manner that treated everyone, including local communities, with respect and integrity, while building their understanding about the many histories, Wairaka, Rakataura, what happened when the colonists arrived and what that meant for the Maunga and the environment and everything that's happened since. There's a lot of history there. But wouldn't it have been better to build everyone's understanding of all those histories and the thinking behind the processes that the authority is going through with what it's doing, and genuinely engaging with everyone with communities on their questions and concerns. That's something that's never happened in relation to the tree issue. And look, Honour the Maunga, we're here to save the trees. And if that happens, we'll pack up and go away, although I know a few of us will be popping up in tree saving efforts, after this. But I've thought a lot about the way forward, an awful lot, and how to heal the rifts that the past year's events have opened up. And I've done a lot of reading and discussions about it, and one of the books I read recently was one called Imagining Decolonization, and it's a series of essays written by Māori and Pakeha on decolonisation. And I just want to read you an excerpt from this because I think it shows a way forward. And the book talks about how between 2012 and 2015 more than 5,000 Māori participated in the Matiki Mai program of nationwide discussions about constitutional transformation. There was a recognition of the need to put Papatūānuku back at the centre of all political and personal relationships. The discussions focused on the following values: the value of place, the need to promote good relationships with and ensure the protection of Papatūānuku, the value of tikanga, the core ideals that describe the ought to be of living in Aotearoa and the particular place of Māori within that tikanga, the value of community, the need to facilitate good relationships between all people, the value of belonging, the need for everyone to have a sense of belonging, the value of balance, the need to maintain harmony in all relationships, including in the exercise of constitutional authority, and the value of conciliation, the need to guarantee a conciliatory and consensual democracy. We're a year into our tree saving actions, and I think those of you who saw the article in the Online Herald today, the reporter pointed out that both sides have become very entrenched, and that's true. And I think that if these values had been followed, then we wouldn't be standing here today, and to me these values seem like the way forward. It would be wonderful if the authority took the lead on that. So look, I'd just like to close with some thank yous. Thank you so much to our wonderful patrons, Karoto, and with the support of Meriana and whānau. It's been truly an honour, and I've learnt so much and got so much to learn about tikanga and Māori processes, and become, along with a number of others, an Honour the Maunga, a member of the Uri Whanaunga extended family, and some of us are on the Runanga at the Iramoka Marae, and it's an example of how a true partnership can work. And yeah, it's been a blessing. And Harold, where are you? Okay. Hi, thank you so much to the wonderful Harold. Harold was here on the very, very first day before Honour the Maunga even formed, and you've been with us for the long haul. And I have to halve the distance. Thank you. Thank you so much to the to my wonderful committee. Can you just put your hands up? Sama, Sarah at the back, David, Wendy and David. Man, I just couldn't have, this is a team effort, but I couldn't have done what I've done without your support and wise counsel, and it's a really special group, and totally appreciate your ongoing support and utter commitment to this. And thank you everyone who's our Honour the Maunga people, everyone who's been involved in an active way, all the roster helpers who have been at the base, rain, hail and shine. People who have helped behind the scenes and in other ways. And this is a team effort. And also we've got supporters from the wider community, people who have signed the petition and donated and supported in other ways. Thank you. And finally, but last but certainly not least, thank you to my family. Can you here put your hands up? You poor people, and my long-suffering husband here. There's 3 of us in the marriage at the moment, myself, Don, and the Maunga. And I know it's been hard on my family, and I think you all get slightly sick of it from time to time, but I really value and appreciate your ongoing support. So where to from here? The judicial review hearing, which looked at did Te Puna Maunga Authority and Auckland Council follow due process of law under the Reserves Act and wanting to fell all these trees. That was heard in the Auckland High Court in early June, and we're still awaiting the decision. So one of my other questions is, when's the judge going to deliver her decision? Because it's kind of hard not knowing, to be honest, and it's hard keeping motivated not knowing. So we'll just keep doing what we're doing, and if the news is bad, we'll keep doing what we're doing. And if the news is good, well, yeah, I mean, we don't need to be here. But, you know, regardless of the decision, the upshot is we're here until we know the trees are safe. So, thank you so much, everyone. Wendy's just going to say a few words about the Western Springs pine issue, because there's a lot of stuff that's coming up and that's hugely relevant to this. And then we will plant a totara tree in honour of Richie Afford, who sadly, he was one of our original supporters who came to all our gatherings right up until the COVID lockdown, and he sadly passed away in the second lockdown, aged 97. And we thought it would be a nice gesture to plant a totara on the Maunga in his honour. And and we thought, you know, we've been here trying to stop 345 trees being felled, and here we'll plant one, and a native one at that. And so nearly a month ago I emailed the authority and asked permission, and they're not always the best at communicating, so when we hadn't heard, we just assumed that meant it was all right. Until I think some journalists must have mentioned the totara to them, because we got this long email yesterday saying we need a resource consent and an archaeologist report, and we're breaching this regulation and that regulation. And then that was quickly followed by a long email from Heritage New Zealand informing us we'd be destroying an archaeological site. So we're going to plant it in the garden, which is on the other side of the boundaries there. So we're going to plant it. Anyway, nothing simple. So we'll pass to Wendy to say a few words. We'll have the tree planting, and that tree will be blessed by both Paroto and Harold, and then we'll share a meal. If anyone's got any questions, more than happy to ask them. Thank you. Answer them, sorry.
Before that, and before Wendy, we can't go unacknowledged what Anna has done, what she's contributed. And for those of us that are on the committee working alongside Anna, this is a lady of incredible passion and patience, and I think there's just so much that we've learnt from her. And what we're doing is trying to help her remain sane, and also we're trying to help Don still have a wife. So look, I don't think it's fair at all to not acknowledge Anna's incredible contribution to this. We're all here because she took a stand. That's what it comes down to. So I just want to say a huge
thank you.
Thank you to Anna. That's why we're here.